Hi, good morning. Welcome to episode 161 of the PassionKnit Spinner podcast. My name is Tracy. You can find me as Schnüffeltier on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is not going to be a normal podcast where I show off the things that I made the last week, because today is my podcast anniversary. I started this podcast when I was pregnant. My son is 6 now. So I've been doing this for 7 years. And yes, I know there were, large gaps in between. Otherwise, we would have had a lot more than 160 episodes before this. But it just worked out that way. I mean, we can change that now. And it seems like you are still here to watch. And I hopefully am back with a vengeance, and I will record a lot in the future and just keep going. So today I thought we would do a Q&A, and I asked on Instagram and then on YouTube for your questions. And I brought my iPad so I can read them off, and I'm going to start with the questions that I got on Instagram because I took a screenshot of that. So the first question that I received was, has pulling from your stash turned into a quest? And do you do a little celebratory jig? I don't do a jig normally, sometimes. But yeah, it has become a quest because I have a gigantic stash. You have not seen my stash, and you probably never will, but it's large. And I promised myself that I would only cast on projects where I have the yarn for. And if I don't have the yarn, I'm not gonna work on that. It's not gonna happen, because accumulating more yarn at this point is actually stupid. So yeah, it has become a quest to pull everything from stash, or for every project. Okay, the longest languishing whip, and will it be finished or frogged? So the longest languishing whip I have, and I checked that before, I'm gonna show you here. It is called Hip in Hemp. It's a skirt. Yeah, a skirt. And I have started that in I'm locked out of Ravelry because I don't use it enough. So it's called Hip and Hemp. The pattern is by Gudrun Johnston, and it was in Knitty. And I cast it on relatively soon after it came out. It's the longest languishing whip I have. And I cast it on July 14th, 2009. I'm going to show you a picture. This is what it looks like right now, because I took this picture, I think, last year. So that is it. That is the skirt. I actually do want to finish it. I don't think I would fit into it because, from 2009 to now, it's been 12 years. I had a child. I am not in my mid-20s anymore, and I've gotten an ass. So I don't think I will be fitting into it, but I really do want to finish it. That's why it's still on the needles. And then after that, the next oldest pattern or project I have on my needles is my Memories blanket, Cozy Memories, which I have never called Cozy Memories blanket. It's my mitered square blanket that I'm knitting for myself, and I cast that on in 2016. So, there's a long gap between those two, because last year, in the beginning of the year, I did finish off some of the very old whips I had on my needles. So it's a skirt. Next question. Have you ever thought about designing sweaters? Yes and no. I have thought about it, and I've decided against it because the math, the grading, getting fit right, I just feel like I need to know a lot more about how to do that before I would ever venture into it. I do have 20 patterns up on Ravelry, and they were deactivated for a few years now. And I just, this week, I reactivated most of them. And I am currently working on knitting new samples for the patterns that I have, or, you know, I picked one of the patterns and I'm currently working on a sample for that. It's called Cranberry Cowl. You can already look it up on Ravelry. It's not active yet because I have to rewrite the pattern and redo the chart, but I really hope to release that this week, or re-release it into the world, you know, this week. So I've done accessories, I've done shawls and socks and a toy and cowls and mitts, but I don't think I will venture into the world of sweaters. Do you have one favorite make from these years, like the last 7 years? Does my son count? Probably not. That's cheesy, isn't it? My favorite make from the last years, I'm gonna go with one for all of my family members. So I think my favorite make, because I still cannot believe I pulled it off, was the dude sweater cardigan that I made for my husband. I made that 3 years ago, I think. It definitely was before the pandemic, because I knit on that while my husband was away for work. And I gifted it to him for our wedding anniversary or his birthday. I don't remember, but I knit it completely in secret. It was my first big colorwork project. It is a cardigan in 1x1 rib, in knit flat, in colorwork. So I think that's my favorite make, because I pulled it off, I guess. Then the favorite make for Tim I think is the skull sweater, you know, the Halloween sweater that I made for him. Although everything I make for him is my favorite thing, because he's just so happy about everything I knit for him. He's like, yay! And for myself, I have to go with two different things. Definitely the festive doodle, because it was the first full, complete colorwork fingering weight sweater for myself that I made. And it still is the only one. And the other thing is the So Day cardigan, which is a cabled cardigan. The pattern was in Line magazine, and that was a challenge. It really was. The cables itself, no challenge. I mean, it's a cable. It's always the same thing you do. You just have to do different stitch counts. But the setting up and the increasing and the whole way the pattern was made, very complicated. Worth it, but complicated. Okay, top 5 dream destinations. I mean, on top of that is New Zealand, and it has been for over 20 years now. So yeah, New Zealand, and then Iceland. I really want to go to Iceland. I really want to go to Norway. And Finland again. I've been to Finland before, only to Helsinki, so I'm not sure. I really want to go to see more of Finland, and I want to go to Latvia. I think those are my 5 dream destinations right now. So that's the Instagram questions, but there's more to come, because on YouTube I got a lot of questions, and I'm just gonna work my way up, oldest to newest. Okay, let's start. You mentioned you were a home ec teacher. Do you miss that? Yes and no. I am a home ec teacher. I'm also a teacher for arts and crafts. I think that's what my job relates to in, you know, outside of Germany. I do miss it sometimes. I do not miss the politics around school. I do not miss dealing with parents who think that their child is the best child on earth, because, you know, that's what we do as parents, even though some children just really suck. And I know it's something you're not allowed to say, but some children just are not easy to deal with. And the parents are even worse normally, because, you know, the apple does not fall far from the tree. So I do miss the work with the kids and, you know, the actual teaching bit, but the around I don't miss at all. So no. I guess the answer to the question in short is no, I do not miss that work. What was your favorite sock, yarn, sweater, spin, and hand spun knit? So favorite sock. I think the favorite sock is the Zwergenaufstand socks that I did earlier this year. It's a colorwork sock with a little gnome on the bottom of the foot. My favorite yarn is, hey, lass this. My favorite yarn is Schoppelwolle Alblino. It's my absolute favorite. It is a non-superwash Southern German merino with a French organic linen. So that is my favorite yarn. My favorite sweater is probably the one I'm wearing. Not specifically this one, but I have two boxies and I wear those a lot. They're the perfect round the house sweater, you know. I do love my other sweaters. But most worn are the boxy, then the festive doodle, and my flex light. Those are the ones I wear the most. My favorite spin, I don't know. Probably all the things I made during Tour de Fleece this year, because I tried a lot of different things. I also spun a kilo of a BFL humbug that took me a few years to spin, because I only spun on that when I was at a like a retreat, and I want to make the row cardigan by Michelle Wong out of that. I think that is also one of my absolute favorite spins, and the very first combo spin I ever did, you know, when I tried that out and just thought, let's just try what happens with this, and I knit a cardigan out of it, and I love that cardigan. So I think that must be up there with the favorite spins. But you know, I love spinning, I really do. So it's hard to say which is my favorite. Favorite hand spun knit. Whew. I don't use my hand spun as much as I should. So I don't have actually a lot of things out of hand spun, but I would say my favorite hand spun knit is a sweater that I knit from a German knitting magazine that has a traveling cable going down in the front, and I knit that out of a combo spin. Oops, sorry. Okay. Nobody has yet asked you how and why you learned to spin. What is your spinning origin story? So I've been a blogger first. I blogged in German for 10 years before I started my podcast. So I've been around the internet knitting world for a very long time at this point. And the blogging led me to read other people's blogs, of course, and also led me to that retreat I just talked about. And I saw people spinning there. I was like, I like that. That looks like a cool thing to do. And also I just wanted to, you know, have the whole process, spin the yarn and then use the yarn. And then I actually had to learn how to spin for my training to become an arts and crafts teacher. So that is where I actually learned how to spin. You know, the basics about spinning. And then I got a spinning wheel from my husband for Christmas in 2007. That's when I got my first wheel. And a few months later, I was invited by a German indie dyer to come visit her over the weekend and bring my wheel, and she would sit down with me and teach me a bit more about spinning. So that's my spinning origin story. I had to learn for becoming a teacher. What is your favorite knit item and what was the hardest yarn you ever spun? Okay, favorite knit item. I think we've gone over that, but I'm just gonna go with my festive doodle. Now, hardest yarn I ever spun, hands down, the boucle I did for Tour de Fleece. If you follow me on Patreon, you will have seen the video of how I did boucle. And it's actually, it's not hard. You know, it's not hard to do. It just takes forever. I plied this yarn. It just never stopped. And I ended up with just about 200 meters of it. It was like, it's so much work. So yeah, that's the hardest thing I ever did. Making actual real boucle, where I spun a 100% mohair and then plied it with silk threads. The mohair story. Okay, do you watch other podcasts? If you do, which ones are they? Well, of course I watch podcasts. I've watched podcasts for a long time, and I watched them long before I started. My favorites currently are Knitting Traditions, Heather and Hops, Sonder, and Cup of Tea and a Yarn, Kent of Kent. If you've not watched any of those, I mean, you just go and do it. I have to admit, I don't watch nearly as much as I did before, because when we moved here where we live now, my husband was away for work all the time. I didn't know anyone because, you know, I was a student teacher. I got sent here to do my job, and so I was alone 95% of the time. So what I would do, I would come home from school, get everything prepared for the next day, and then I would sit down to knit and watch podcasts until I went to bed. And I don't have that time anymore. And now in the evening, I just want to watch something fictional, you know. But yeah, the ones I just mentioned, I do watch. I have so many more that I have subscribed to, and I occasionally watch, but not all the time. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Okay. I would like to know whether you have a favorite or favorite few craft books. Are there a few that you return to often for answers? No. I think that's the best answer. I do not return to craft books for answers a lot. Mainly, and that's going to sound super cocky because I really seldomly have any questions. I've been a knitter for almost all of my life and a spinner for, you know, half of that time. So I rarely have questions, actually, but I do have a favorite spinning book, and that's the Spinner's Book of Yarn Design. It is a white book. It's, I think, by Sarah Anderson. Not sure about that. Another favorite book is Yarnitecture by Jill Moreno. And for knitting, specifically knitting patterns, I don't know. I have a lot of knitting books, and yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I do have lots of them, and I don't use them as much as I should, which is also something I want to change. But yeah, let's just go with no. Okay. Someone may have already asked you this question, but here goes. When did you learn to knit? Who taught you to knit? Does anyone in your family knit, and do you sometimes knit with them? Let's do those first, and then there's others. So I learned how to knit in 4th grade from my teacher. I wanted to learn from my mother, who's also a knitter, or used to knit a lot back then stopped for a long time and then picked it back up. But she said, you know what? I'm not going to deal with that. You will learn in school when it's time. When I was young, you know, school kid young, it was mandatory for every child to learn how to crochet in grade 3 and learn how to knit in grade 4. Boys, girls, everybody. And that's when I learned how to knit, and I never really stopped after that. Yeah, my mother knits, and yes, we do knit together. Next question, do you enjoy cooking? I do. I am a home ec teacher. I've trained for a long time to become a home ec teacher. So I've trained a lot in food, you know, how to source it, how to use it, how to prepare it, nutrition, dietary stuff. I've learned a lot about food. And when I still worked, I would teach home ec so much that I did not want to cook when I came home. I couldn't deal with it. So I didn't back then. Right now, I really enjoy cooking again because I don't have to do it all day long. What are some of your favorite things to cook? I really like cooking traditional meals from my area, which is a lot of variations of some sort of homemade pasta, and I'm using pasta very loosely here, paired with sauerkraut, which, you know, sounds very cliche, but it's my favorite food. I'm sorry. But I also really like trying new things, you know, and trying dishes from other countries and just experimenting. So those probably are my favorite things. Then I love that you enjoy reading. What have been some of your favorite authors or books? Well, my favorite book, of course, is The Lord of the Rings, followed very quickly by The Hobbit. And so yeah, J.R.R. Tolkien, my favorite author. I have, I've read so many books, you know, so much different stuff. I don't really think I have a favorite author per se, apart from Tolkien. So I would say I'd rather go into genres. I think my favorite genres are mystery/thriller and fantasy. And recently I have really enjoyed romance books because they're the perfect escape from, you know, the reality we live in right now. So that is those questions. My question is, who and how did you learn knitting? And what about making turned it into a passion for you? Okay, so I already told you I learned how to knit in school. And then I just kept on knitting small things, you know, headbands, scarves for my toys and stuffies and things like that. And then I learned how to knit socks, and I really enjoyed that. And then I've always enjoyed knitting, you know, that's been the thing that I liked to do. And then the internet came around, and it was, you know, becoming a popular thing to actually use. And I stumbled across my first ever knitting blog, and it was called Das kleine Nadelspiel. And reading her blog and then finding other blogs and reading more about knitting, and then there's more people out there who enjoy doing this. I think that turned it into a passion for me. Yeah, I think that's it. Jetzt nicht. Nein. I'm talking to my cat. Okay, next. I would like to know how you decide how to put yarns together for a sweater and how you modify sweaters. Okay, how I put yarns together for a sweater is largely dictated by what I can find in my stash. And yeah, I think that's the answer to that question. And modifying sweaters, I learned how to modify sweaters when I became more adept at sewing. Because for sewing, you know, when you have a fabric that's stiff, like this is knit fabric, you know, it can stretch it. But when you have a stiff fabric, like a woven fabric that you're working with, and you do not adjust your pattern to work with your body, it just won't fit because there's no give in it. So I learned how to modify patterns for my body when I learned how to sew. And now I try to incorporate that knowledge into when I knit. And the most of the things that I do is only making it this shape because my hips are a lot larger than my bust. So that's probably the only modification I do. And length, you know, I rarely knit sweaters to the length the pattern calls for or sleeves. I found the length I prefer and I knit to that length. Okay, my questions are about language. Okay. Your English far exceeds the average German school knowledge. Thank you. Where did you beef up your skills, and why do you make the podcast in English rather than German? Okay, let's go with the second question first. I decided to do my podcast in English for two reasons. First of all, my crafting life takes mainly part in English. I knit from English patterns. I sew from English patterns. I sometimes don't even know the German terms for things because I don't use them. So that was one reason. The other reason is reach. There's so many more people out there who understand English than German. And pair that with my lack of knowledge when it comes to German knitting terms, it was just a logical thing for me to go with English. And as for language itself, when I moved out of my parents' house 18 years ago, and I moved in with my husband a year later, so we've been living together for a long time, we somehow started watching our favorite TV shows in English because they were not available in German. So we had watched them in German up until a point, and then we couldn't because there was nothing to watch. And then we started watching in English. And first it was like, I don't understand a word, what is going on here? I hate this. And then we just persevered. And we've been doing that ever since. So I have watched every movie, TV show, everything in English for probably 16 years. And then I started reading English books. I had read English books before, you know, but I'm not focusing on English books. It's more like I want to read the book in the language it was written in, if I can read that language. And watching a lot of podcasts, you know, hearing people speak, learning more vocabulary and stuff like that. I think that is how my school English became what it is now. Just, you know, listening to English things and learning by doing that. Okay. Just wondering if spinning and knitting homestead crafts are as big over in Germany as it is over here. I think over here is the US. Oh yeah, it is. We have big box stores just for crafts and supplies, along with small independent shops and online virtual stores. No, it is not at all like it is in America. When you are a homemaker, a crafter, you sometimes get looked down to a bit, I feel like, and it's like this, yeah, you do that. But I feel like in America, it's, you know, oh, you're a quilter, that is so amazing, or it has a completely different standing in society when you craft and when you make things. Here it is not like that. It's getting better in the last few years. It has been getting better a lot, but we sadly do not have those large stores where you can get your craft supplies. You have to find them online. And if you find a craft shop, they have a small selection of things. It's very expensive. And when you want to then, you know, go on selling what you made, people are not willing to pay what it's worth. So, and it also largely depends on what you do. When you are a painter and you paint things, you can sell your stuff and you can, you know, go for an actual price that is kind of fair. But for a knitter or a seamstress, just forget it. I have a little corner booth thing in a local art studio, and the person who does it, runs it, she's an artist, she paints. And one of her hand-painted mugs is 20 euros, which I think is a great price for a hand-painted mug. But starting to paint myself now, I can kind of understand how long it takes her. So I'm guessing one of those mugs takes between 1 and 2 hours. More 1 than 2. Probably some even less. It's 20 euros. When I sell a pair of socks, I have decided on how I want to, you know, get to the price that I'm charging. I'm charging half the shoe size, which, let's say the shoe size is 40. So half of that would be 20 plus material costs. So let's say I used an opal sock yarn for that sock, and I would charge 28 euros for those socks, which is a ridiculously small amount of money, considering that knitting a pair of socks in an adult size 40. Takes me roughly 10 hours. And people still like, 28 euros for a pair of socks. Are you crazy? I can get those cheaper. So, no. Knitting, crafting in general does not have the standing it does have in the US. I would love to hear about your favorite Christmas traditions. What traditions do you have that are unique to Germany? Well, I think the one thing that is unique to Germany is that the gifts are not brought to us by Santa. They are brought by the Christkind. And I think that's about it. I'm not very adept at Christmas traditions. Christmas is a bit of a touchy subject for us because my husband and I, we don't associate a lot of good things with Christmas. My family always fought on Christmas Eve, which is the day where we get our gifts, you know. Gift giving in Germany, it happens on Christmas Eve in the evening. So my family always fought on Christmas Eve every year. There was a huge fight. And in my husband's family, my father-in-law passed away on Christmas Eve. So Christmas is a bit for us, but we're trying now to like overcome all of those issues to make Christmas be a magical time for Tim. So yeah, Christmas traditions, I would say food. You either do a goose with all of the things that go with it, you know, very similar to a Thanksgiving dinner. Or, which is what my family has done, you go very basic and you just go for bratwurst with Kartoffelsalat, you know, potato salad and some bratwurst to go with it. Because it's the one day where you don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen because you'd rather spend the time with your family. I think that is the most important part. And the gifts appear in the evening when the Christkind comes around and helps mommy. And mommy helps the Christkind to put everything where it should be, while daddy entertains the children in a faraway room. And then a little bell rings and you're allowed to go in. But I don't know about any other Christmas traditions, really. Singing, but that's not specific. You know, nothing specifically German to it. At least not to my knowledge. Okay, I have a few questions. Okay, let's go. What is your gauge for socks? I have no idea. And I do not have a ruler here. Otherwise I would measure because I have socks next to me. But I think it's roughly between 30 and 32 stitches per 4 inches. The needles you use are way bigger than mine. Yeah, because I'm a very tight knitter. I knit my socks on on US 2 needles because I'm such a tight knitter. I want to know more about German yarn. I like what is your favorite German commercial yarn? Stoppelwolle Alplino. Talked about that before. German yarn company. Stoppelwolle. Can you get yarn in supermarkets in Germany? Yes, you can. But usually it's like a non-brand yarn, or you can sometimes, they have one of those spinny things filled with Regia sock yarn. Is netting back in trend in Germany? Has it always been, or is it considered a granny hobby? Yes and yes. So knitting has been considered a granny hobby for most of my knitting time, but recently it's come back in, you know, back in trend, and now it's not considered a granny hobby as much as it used to. Okay, now here's lots of questions. Of all the spinning wheels you have, what's your favorite and why? My favorite spinning wheel, I'm not sure. I would say it's the Rose, my Maya Craft Rose, because I can do everything with that. I have a jumbo flyer and jumbo bobbins. I can do art yarn. I can spin everything from a super fine lace weight to a super bulky single on that wheel. easily. So I would say that one. Do you find that one wheel more than another is better to use for some type of wool or another? No. I think that depends entirely on the spinner. What's your favorite fiber and why? My favorite fiber is BFL. Why? I don't know. Probably because I just like the longer fiber, because it makes for a more chilled out way of spinning. I don't know why, but BFL is my favorite fiber. And why don't you like some of the most popular fibers? Okay, I'm guessing, as I know who you are, I'm guessing you're referring to me not liking Cormo, Rambouillet, or Targhee. They're too springy. I don't like it. They're sticky and springy, and I just don't like them. I don't know why, but I do not enjoy the feeling of those fibers in my hands. I like BFL. I like Corriedale a lot. I like Shetland. Those are the things I enjoy the most. How the hell do you shop your stash? Well, I find a pattern that I want to knit, and then I go and look at my stash if I can find something suitable for it. And if not, I just won't get that. I will not knit that pattern, or the other way around. I look through my stash because whatever, and find a yarn like, I would really like to knit with this right now. And then I go and find a perfect pattern for it. What goes into your color choices when you put different colors together? Most of the time, it is a question of what is here. What do I own? What do I have? So, for instance, when I knit the Festive Doodle, which is an all-over colorwork pattern, it wasn't a, oh, I would love to do it in these colors. It was a, okay, let's see, I need 4 different colors and 1 skein each. Let's see what I can find. And then I found exactly 4 skeins of Regia tweed in my stash. And I got a little leftover from a friend to, make up for the lack in yardage. So it wasn't it was more a, I have this, so let's make this work in a way. And what goes into my color choices apart from that? Yeah, I think there's another question coming where I can explain it better, because you will hear it. When did you start doing these bullet journals and why? I started bullet journaling last year because I was at a very low point in my mental health life journey. And I felt like there's nothing I ever did, like I would just sit around and maybe knit and stare at the wall, which is very untrue. And I know that now, and I realize that now. So I started bullet journaling to mainly write down what it is I actually do in a day. That's the reason why I started. If you still use them, how did your use of them change? I don't use a bullet journal anymore. I only use my a stream of consciousness brain dump journal, because the bullet journal was just too strict, too regimented. You write down this, write down that. And I didn't enjoy that process. So I stopped doing that, and I only have my just write down whatever I feel like writing down journal now. What do you most like about doing and using them? What I just said. What's your most favorite thing to cook and why? Already answered. What's your least favorite, but you cook it anyway? No, I don't have any of those. Nope. I don't cook anything I don't want to cook. I want to know which of your spinning wheels is the one you use the most. So the one I use the most is definitely the Sidekick by Schacht. It's just my go-to spinning wheel for when I want to spin my go-to yarn, which is a 2-ply, anywhere between a fingering and a worsted weight. I go for the Sidekick. Okay, I'd like to ask, what is your favorite fiber to spin? BFL. What is your favorite wheel? the rose. And what is your favorite spindle of all time? Ooh. Okay. My favorite spindle that I own is definitely the Bosworth Moosey, which is made from antlers, from moose antlers. But it's one of the ones I don't use all that much. I bought it years ago. I mean, way before I started podcasting, a long time ago. And back then, I wasn't a good spindle spinner, and I was too afraid to use it because I was too afraid to drop it. And I think I spun one yarn on it. But it's my favorite for that reason. You know, it's just, the material is so wonderful, and I really should get back to it, because now I'm good at spindle spinning, you know. I will not drop it, I will not damage it, so I want to get back to that. Okay, if you could only have one spinning wheel, one spindle, one set of knitting needles, one set of crochet needles, one fiber, and one type of yarn, what would you choose? Ooh. Okay, let's start from the top. One spinning wheel, I would have to say the Rose by Maya Craft, because it's the most versatile. One spindle, probably it's Gizmo. Probably the KCL Woods that I have with the shaft that unscrews, because it's the easiest to use. One set of knitting needles, Dayak Crafts needles. I have a set of Dayak Crafts apple wood needles, and those are my favorites because they're very long, and so I can use them easier. Set of crochet needles, I don't care. I don't crochet a lot, so one fiber, a BFL, and one type of yarn, Stoppelwolle Alpino. Also, what is your favorite make ever? And last of all, what are you most thankful for? Favorite make ever, I think I already answered that. What I'm thankful for, most thankful for. Is that in regards to crafting and podcasting or life in general? Let's just answer all of that. I'm most thankful for, when it comes to crafting and podcasting, gonna sound super cheesy, but I'm most thankful for all of you who keep watching my podcast, because if you wouldn't watch, I wouldn't be sitting here 7 years on doing this Q&A. And in general, I'm most thankful for my husband and son, and for my mental health improving, because I have learned about it and I've learned to change things. Jetzt wart halt kurz. Nein. My cat is outside and he desperately wants in, but I do not want to edit this video, so and he has to wait. It's not cold out, so don't worry. Okay. I'm sure you've already shared it, but I'd love to hear your fiber story. Who taught you to knit? We covered that. How old were you? I was in 4th grade, so I was 10. And do you crochet? I do sometimes, not a lot. I used to crochet a bit more, but I feel like it hurt my wrists a bit more, so I rarely crochet these days. Oh, that was the last one. Okay. That was all of the questions, or those were all of the questions, I should say. So thank you so much for putting the questions up and for being here. Really, I am so thankful for you being here watching these podcasts and my Vlogmas that I'm doing right now. And yeah, like, you've been on a journey with me for a long time now, and I'm just thankful. And I will be back next week with a normal podcast episode. I don't think I can fit one in this week because I'm doing Vlogmas, you know, and I have to film things for Patreon, and it's just, there's only so many hours in the day. So this is it for this week, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful time and a beautiful St. Nicholas Day, which is today. And I will talk to you again probably in half an hour when I continue filming for Vlogmas. So until I see you again, enjoy everything you do. Bye.